Okie doke. I'm having to put this is Vicki, by the way, Vicki Ross. Actually, Vicki Ross. Actually, I'm having to put my money where my mouth is. Have a commission on the pumpkin, and it is on a square canvas that I don't know. I do know too. Probably came from Tuesday morning or something like that. When we decorated the big house, we had 5,500 square feet and nothing because of the fire. So this was something that we got just to put on the downstairs area by the pool, and I sanded it and then wiped it off with a damp cloth, and now I'm using the DecoArt Media gesso, and I'm going to give it a good coat of gesso. So I'm having to put my money where my mouth is on several different fronts. One is I'm recycling a piece that I saved for this purpose, and I could have, and I thought about it and didn't do it. This has a real nice backing on it, suede cloth with a hanger. So I need to tape that off to protect it until I get the sides painted and all that. So I'll do that here in just a few minutes. So I'm using the DecoArt gesso because it has a thicker coverage. It's a thicker gesso, going all kinds of different directions so that I can get the weave of that canvas coated. And it may take 2 or 3 coats. And if it should ever bleed through, it won't be a big problem because the colors are going to be similar to what I'm using for the pumpkin. And the other thing I had to put my money where my mouth is saying that art journaling is a great place to work out design issues and play and have fun, and then extend that over into your more fine art or wall art or whatever you want to call it. I choose to call it fine art. So my fine art. I thought about just letting her have this one, the one on paper, but then that requires glass frame and mat, and I thought, no, just leave that as it is and do something else. It won't be exactly the same, and that's the fun of being an artist. Use that for inspiration. What is that? Clump of gunk. Clump of gunk. I'll probably sand this in between. And I've got another one of these. So if anybody else out there in La La Land wants a real painted pumpkin, let me know. And as always, if it's something I'm doing for someone else, I use artist quality paints. And that way I know the house paint's not going to fall off in 2 years. Alright. I'm going to cover the back of that, and then I'll do the sides, and then I'll be back later. Bye. Using some cleanup paper, and this obviously, oh, I know what this was. This was on my encaustic desk when I was doing that, so it's got waxy stains on it. But it'll work great for this. I'm turning in the edge a little bit, and then I will take some wide masking tape. You can't see that. Like this. Because I've got to give the tape something to stick to, so I could probably even come up into here. And if I get a few little drips under there on that back, it won't really matter. Won't matter about a thing. So now to find my big masking tape. I'll talk to you guys later. I have printed bunches of these trying to get the size. And that one's just about where I was the other day. So, here's the dilemma. I typically plan these things on the computer so that I know exactly what size I'm going to get, but I've got that new laser printer. Well, that doesn't have a thing to do with anything except that I don't have my tabloid anymore, my big size. So I was just eyeballing it, which is fine. Now, when I flip this over, that makes the pumpkin a little bit off center, which I like. And that leaves room at the top for my drippies. And my leaves are over here. So that's just about right, because I didn't want the pumpkin to overpower what we're going to play with in the background. So I'm going with that. The panel has 3 coats of gesso, and this is the De La Rowney gesso. Not De La Rowney. Excuse me. Deco Art Media Gesso, and it's really a thick gesso, so I tried to keep the water out of it so that it would cover. And I think I told you that I was going to cover the back because it had a nice flocked paper background with a hanger, so I wanted to preserve that if I could. And I'm going to see if I have a preference for the bottom. Now what I'm looking at is, because this is a stretched canvas on stretcher bars, you sometimes get a little bit of a crease. So I'm finding the side that has the most crease. And I think it's right here, so I'm going to have that be my bottom, and I'll be back. There it is. Leaf, leaf, leaf. We have the stem. Whoop. Then we have a pumpkin. Plenty. Except I probably made it all too high. I want it sitting down there about like that. That's good. That's good. These are the Deco Art Medium that I pulled the other day when I was doing this. Has been done before. Isn't that cool? This has been done before. Yes, it has. I don't think I have an original idea. I've got 2 colors of green, so we'll need those later. I've got sap green, which is yellow green, and viridian, which is a blue green. I've got 2 yellows, and I've got the raw sienna, and then I've got an orange, cat orange hue, quinacridone red, quinacridone violet, and I've got burnt umber and transparent red iron oxide. And the red oxide and the quinacridone violet were similar, but I'm going to use them anyway. So there you go. And then I have the other 2 colors is the Titan Buff and an interference green. And the interference green I put on and then promptly covered it up with the Titan Buff, so I may put some interference green after if I want some of that. So there's my plan, and that's about all the plan there is, and it will go out the window just as soon as I get started. Big brush. This requires a really wet surface. And I'm going to start with yellow because yellow is underneath leaves in the stem. So, alright, I'm good and wet. Oh, poopy. I didn't get my Alcohol. Alcohol. So nice to be organized. I went right to it. I have an eyedropper this time. So I'm going to pour some in the lid. Well, now that doesn't make a bit of difference. So that you could supposedly clean it up. Alright, let's get some more yellow on here. Okay, eyedropper. Drop, drop. Now can you see the, of course you can see that. The alcohol pushes the water out of the way. I don't like using the cap. Never mind. What else do I have? Now we have to let that dry. And I'm going to be careful this time that I don't get any hard edges like I did in my journal. Not that it really mattered there, but I don't want any hard edges. You know, pipette might be better. We're going to try that. See, pipette. It's got a little smaller. Okay. I'm going to wipe up here just a little bit on the edges. My table is perfectly flat, so I don't get any drastic movement. If I want drastic movement, I have to pick it up. Here we go, I'm going to dry. I want y'all to start paying attention to the tone of the color. This is what we call a cool yellow because it has a little bit of a greenish cast to it. And I'm looking in the viewfinder and it looks like lime green, but it's really not. The name of this color is primary yellow. So if you go to a yellow that's got a little red in it, you're going to start picking up more of an orange cast. Can you mix these colors? Of course. You can mix a good clear yellow and a quinacridone red. You're going to get a real good orange, which is similar to this. This is a convenience mixture, cat orange, and you can mix it pretty close with these. Now, that's only with artist quality paint. You will not be able to get good results if this says pretty lemon and bright orange, Halloween orange, and kiss me pink, or whatever, kiss me red. Because those lines of paint are designed more to be used separately, not for mixing. Artist quality paint, you can mix some if you're missing them. And I'm going to do a video on that, I promise. And the other thing that I've said before is that when you use a heat gun, your pigment, the water is lighter than the pigment, lighter in molecules. So you're going to dry the water, and the wind or the air is going to force the pigment, holding this up, force the pigment to the edges of where the water was. So like here was the water, the pigment went to there, and that's the last thing to evaporate. So it collects on the outer edge of where you're blowing. Does that make sense? See how it collects and makes a little bit of a ring? You can work that to your advantage. Let me dry this. Something I did here that I want you to be mindful of. It's not a mistake, but I just want you to know how easy it is to do it. I stayed in one spot too long and bubbled up the gesso. Now, does that matter? Not really. It just adds some texture. But you do want to, again, use that to your advantage. And if you don't like it, scrape it off, put some more gesso on, and go again. So, If we're not all the way dry, it's close enough. So we're going to do it again. Lots of water. And this time I'm going to go with the Diarylide Yellow. And these are chemical names, folks. These aren't mine. These are chemistry pigments. Pipette. Now if you do this technique with 3 primary colors, like a red, a green, and a, not green, red, yellow, and a blue, you're going to get more dramatic texture where the colors push apart. For example, here, that would be yellow, and the new color would be this one, which would be a reddish color. But what it does is the alcohol lets the layers, moves the paint away, so that in some of these layers, you'll see the original color that you put down. I won't see so much of it because I am using colors that are close together on the color wheel. And again, I'm going to get up some of the excess right around the edge. And I'm going to dry it, and I'll be back. See the yellow coming through? You can begin to see the yellow contrast with the yellow-orange. Alrighty. I played with moving some pigment around. I'm going to call these my pumpkin warts. I got a few more over here. You know how they get those little bumpy things on them? But you can see where the orange, the alcohol dropped into the orange paint on top of the yellow, pushed all the pigment away from this bright lemony yellow. Now if that was red or blue, you'd really get a huge effect, but I'm going for a warm tone. Let's see, what are we going to do next? So we've done that one, put it away. I'm tempted. Thinking here, I'm going to do some quinacridone violet. Oops, wet first. And I'm going to do it right down here and a swash through there. Maybe just a little right there. This is so I can add some cool tones. Look at that. I just put that over the whole thing. I didn't really want to do that, but you know what? It's okay. There are no mistakes. A little bit in the leaf. And now watch. I can come back in here and take some of that off. Alcohol. Ooh. Neat explosions. Cool, look what that color's doing. I'm getting a halo. It's kind of hard to stop once you get started. But I think we're going to call that one stopped. And I want to get rid of some of these hard edges. I'm going to turn this off and dry. Alright, we're getting some great visual texture. We're not concerning ourselves with so much on the outside. But this is the darker side away from the light, so there's going to be more dark and shadow over here, so that quinacridone red or violet will help tone that down just a little bit. Now I think I'm going to cover the entire... Ooh, my brush wasn't clean. Oh well. Doesn't matter. We're after visual texture. Remember, the water is what makes the alcohol move. This is the quinacridone red. Ooh. And I want some drippage off the bottom. I don't need so much of the red up in here, but a little bit won't hurt. Smooth edge, get rid of the stuff on the bottom. I just said I wanted drippage. Hello. Okay, we got some. Now, and just look at that vibrant yellow coming through, and that was our first layer. You can really see it right in here, and then you can see the quinacridone violet. You can see some hints of the orange that we put down, not a whole lot, but that's fine. I'm after some subtlety here. Okay? Okay. Subtle, subtle. And there's a hard edge, but that's okay. We'll get that fixed. Off to drying. Because we're after visual texture, I had a little bit too much pigment right here, or not too much, that sounds like a judgment, but I had a little bit of the fluid acrylic that hadn't been thinned evenly with the water, and all that does is creates more texture. Here's some more of those little pumpkin verts, and that's what we're after. I think I'm going to put just a little bit of sap green across the bottom of my pumpkin, and I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit up there. And because I tapped that, I got some running. So I'm going to add just a little more. Because this isn't a drippage painting. This is a circleage painting. Got a little bit of green off the bottom. Drying, drying, drying. I want to turn this back on so you can see what I'm doing. When I hit these spots that are just almost dry but not quite, it blots a little bit of that extra pigment and gives me another bit of texture. And those spots where I said it was kind of where the paint picked up, where it was a little bit thick, the green pooled in there. We're getting great texture. Give it just one more shot. Now, there have been books written on glazing, and you could spend a lifetime studying it and the effects of a warm on a cool, on a yellow, on a blue, and what colors you get depending on which pigments you use. The old masters in their oil paintings were masters, well, obviously, master. Because oil painting pigments like this weren't available, they had to make do with a lot of earth tones, which would be your yellow ochres and siennas. And when they did have some bright ultramarine blue or a real pretty rich red, they would glaze it. They would almost resolve their entire painting in the earth tones, and then they'd come back with that precious, expensive pigment and glaze over some of those spots. And then at the very last, they would come in with a thick amount of pigment that would sit on top of all those glazed layers, and it would be luminous. You could look back through. So anyway, like I said, there have been lots and lots of books written on that, and I know enough to get in trouble with my oil painting. I think what I'm going to do now is put a light orange over the whole thing. Plenty soupy. And I'm going to stay away from the leaves. Well, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to thin that orange paint. I'll get it out in a minute. Thin that orange paint right on the canvas. If you're using something besides, this is fluid, DecoArt fluid, you'll want to mix it on a palette or a flat surface first. Ooh, cool. Hello, pumpkin. I'm going to wipe some of that off my leaves and some of it off over there because I don't want any hard edges. Let's see what we get. Look at the yellow showing up. That was our first layer. Isn't that cool? I like using the, oh shoot, I said it right a while ago. I like this better than using the brush and flicking it everywhere. And again, if I were using vastly different pigments, you would be able to identify each layer that we've done coming through those alcohol dots. Totally random. You can see every layer. Getting some good drippage. Okay. Gonna dry. And I'm going to pick up just a little bit of what's left wet. And that gives me extra bits of texture. Dry it just a little more. This is Darylide, damn it, I don't know. And the primary yellow, I'm mixing just a couple of drops of each over here. And I'm going to put a little bit of the raw sienna. I'll show it to you in just a minute. There. I don't know where I'm going, but I'll let you know when we get there. A little bit more of a pumpkin color. And I'm going to put this on the light side, like we put the violet on before. Dang, my brush isn't, my canvas isn't wet. Okay, another brush. That's what I was afraid of. It's not showing up just real good, but good enough. This is a very subtle layer. Beginning to add some brightness here, and I'm going to begin to cool this down here. And so while I'm at it, I'm going to put a little bit of raw umber down here. This is going to be a twofer. Come on down. piece of paper. There wasn't as much water in through here, so I didn't get much pooling of the alcohol, but that's okay too. I'm going to dry it. See how that's beginning to cool that down just a little? Lots of good texture. I think what I want now is the diarrhea yellow mixed with some Titan Buff. It's not quite a 50-50, and I need a little more drop of Titan Buff. Yeah, the other day when I had my little workshop here, I put some alcohol into a sprayer, and it happened to be a sprayer that had yellow in it, but that makes a different kind of texture. Kind of a speckledy. Okay, here we go, drying. I'm gonna go two or three drops of Titan Buff, and then I'm gonna pull just a little bit of that previous mixture. Just warm it up a little bit. See, you can barely tell it. And I'm gonna go over this same area I just did. Alright, now we're getting some definition. And I'm going to experiment with some, I just had it, what did I do with it? Phthalo Green Blue. Now, typically Phthalo Blue is so strong, it will take over just about anything you put it on. But I'm going to drop just a little bit down in this corner, and we're going to see what happens. And see, it doesn't take much. Cool. It's kind of where I was headed. I mean, as far as I have a plan, which I don't. Okay. I don't think some of those are going to hold up, but we're going to dry it now. I think at about this point, which is, I don't know how many layers, if y'all been counting, I haven't. I think you reach a point of diminishing returns. You can still see the lemon yellow. You can see some of the bright red. But I think at this point, I'm going to go with Titan Buff over the whole thing. Or the pumpkin part, anyway. Titan Buff, where'd you go? And I forgot to do the leaves. Well, I didn't really forget. It doesn't matter. I'm going to put a little bit of sap green. Look at the beautiful texture. I let that last layer pretty much dry on its own while I imported some videos because my card was full. And my card was full because I had lots of video on there I hadn't done anything with yet. I think I'm going to quit on the pumpkin for now and do a little bit on the leaves. I need to get another paper towel. We'll put a little bit of the raw sienna. Ooh, that flooded it. Which is fine. Drying. Okay, now I'm going to do a little bit of Viridian. Got some cool texture up in there. I did get a few bubbles. That was the acrylic paint layer underneath that wasn't totally cured. And I just blotted it off and left the texture, and it'll be great. There are no mistakes. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of the raw sienna, 1 drop, and a little bit of the Titan Buff, 3 drops. Science here, that's how many came out. Now I want just a warm, you're not going to be able to see the nuance in that, but it's not as, this was the straight Titan Buff, so now I'm going to put, I forgot to wet it first, that's alright. There's just a little warmer color. I think I'm out of spray, which is fine. This is dried overnight. And we have some wonderful visual texture. And I love the way things happen. It's so much fun. I was planning the bottom yesterday without remembering that this thing had a hanger on it. So that'll have to be moved, but no big deal. Now I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in and see if y'all can see that better than when I hold it up. Pretty cool, huh? Well, I got to thinking about scary when I get to thinking. Yeah, my little pumpkin pimples are still there. So I got the bright idea that I wanted to add a little physical texture. I've got this wonderful cleanup cloth from yesterday. It's got all the colors. And I've got some stamped dressmaker's tissue. And it doesn't really matter what the stamp is because I may go over it with gesso anyway. But I'm just going to put a little bit of that here and there. I've pulled out Deco Art Media Texture Sand Paste, Modeling Paste, Crackle Glaze, and I'm going to get a stencil. And I'll be back. Picked out 2 stencils. This one is one I designed and cut. It's from one of my old cross-stitch patterns, a Jacobean design. But I liked it because the leaves kind of resemble what's going on with the pumpkin. And then I got some dots. And I forgot to get an alphabet. Hang on. Alrighty, I pulled a few. This is one that I cut myself. It's on cardstock, so I won't use that with modeling paste. And then I've got some doodles and scribbles. This is a stencil girl, I'm sure. And I think this is also, I think it's stencil girl. It may be Deco Art. So I've got those. And stencils will be after I do this. And y'all have seen me do this before, where you wet, where you want to tear. And I'm going to scrunch these up a little bit anyway. I've just got a turtle on here from another project, and I'm using it because I can't, there's not a Q-tip right at hand. See how easy that is? No mess, no fuss, and you've got a nice edge. Whoop. Nice feathered edge. And that also means that you can take something out of the middle of this without ending up with a great big mess. Hey baby boy, you ready to go outside? Be right back. We have an outdoor trip. I'm going to show you here in just a minute what happens when you don't wet it first, or don't wet it good enough. It tears totally different. And if that's what you want, that's fine. If you want a little more control. If you're tearing with the grain of the paper, it'll tear smoother. But if you wet it, it'll tear great. So, here we go. Matte medium. Deco Art Media. Have a Martha Stewart. It's what they call a spatula. It's made by Plaid silicone, and it's got a soft handle. It's firm through here and soft here. But anyway, it's got a nice feel. I like it. If I get everything arranged here. I'm going to bring this right over the edge. Now what wrinkles? If you'll notice something else, I don't like things square to the world. And I'm coming over the top really good and getting that adhered really good. Really good. No, we're not going to play Collage the Thumb today. Sometimes you just have to show the muse who is in charge. See, 2 pieces of tape and gently pull. They weren't part of my pull. I'm definitely not wanting to cover up the visual texture I got from yesterday. Look at that, isn't that cool? Lots of things you could do with these. Getting rid of the straight edges. It's kind of like a pumpkin patch. I just want it to look organic, like it grew there. Since this was the cleanup cloth from yesterday, it's got all those gorgeous colors. Okay, all glued down. I'm gonna let this dry outside and then I'll be back with the next stage. Alright, everything is dry. I let it dry natural. Aren't y'all proud of me? And some of these little things can be addressed later. Nice little piece of scrap paper there. Nice. Now, Do 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 do. I think it's time to put the pumpkin on. Turn my ceiling fan off so we don't dry prematurely. Cool, I can't wait. Let's see how we do. Xylene. It's a chart pack blender. It's the only one I've been able to find. And since that's what Lindsay Wyrick says to use, the Frugal Crafter, we're using it. And as I said before, I could draw this, but I don't want to. We're getting there. It takes 2 or 3 passes. The tip of this pen is hard, so you can add a little pressure, which I think helps the image. Now this was a very, very low resolution file, so my lines are not crisp, but that's really an advantage. And depending on what's underneath on my layering is kind of dependent on how good my transfer's turning out. And the xylene also picks up a little bit, which I think just adds to the character. Woo-wee. Cheap drop. If you're sensitive to scents, I'm sensitive to dollars. Now, if you're sensitive to smells, do this outside or in a well-ventilated area. And you has been warned. I'm hoping that Lindsay Frugal Crafter figures out a way to refill these. I think a quart of it at Walmart is, I don't know, under $10. It's over in the painting aisle. And under that is some of the pumpkin pimples. Pumpkin pinkles. Say that 3 or 4 times fast. Y'all bored yet? Anybody remember the copies we used to get in elementary school that were purple? And they smelled so good. It was, shoot. I even learned how to make the stencils for it. Purple ink. Made taking tests fun. Well, just saying. Come on, baby. We're cooking. We'll be drunker than 10 wild Indians when this is done. I hope you watched my video there too on the pumpkin I did for Love Fall Art, hashtag Love Fall Art. It's fun to do something in a journal and then have a reason to come back and recreate it on a real canvas. I thought about just fixing that one for my order, but then that involves glass and framing, and I think I got enough to work with. Ooh, put the lid on that. It smells like a dry cleaner's in here. This is a Zig Art Graphic Twin. I'm just going to remind myself where this leaf is. I don't think this is waterproof. I love the way this eyeliner pulled up. Some of those layers, that's cool. Doesn't take much to please me. First thing I'm going to do is get the Titan buff. And I'm going to wet everything but my design. I know I really like some of those background elements. Doing a little negative painting with water, and I see that ink running, so it is not waterproof. Then that's okay too. Ooh, that's already dry. A little alcohol. Now remember that this will add even more visual texture to the background. And then I'll decide if I want to do a light coat of gesso. Tighten buff. If you have too much water and your ink's not making, your alcohol is not making a mark, very gently mop some up and then try it again. I am loving the fact that I put the physical texture on there. And the wrinkles in the tissue paper add to the organicness of the pumpkin leaves and stems. Okay, it's about done moving. Alright, while we were gone, I wanted to show you that I have left the bottom edge. Look at those yummy transparent colors. And then I went ahead and did the Tighten Buff on the edge with some of the alcohol just so that I could get some of that splattery texture, the white. Actually, it looks a little bit like white on white. Oops, I missed one. How did I do that? I must have done one twice. Oh no, say it ain't so. Oh well, I guess y'all needed to see me do one. Good enough. I'm going to do one more layer of the Tighten Buff up at the top. Real loosely. I went back to my original journal cover and looked at it. Or journal cover. Pumpkin. My original pumpkin. Looking good. Better get that modeling paste. I said I wasn't going to use this, but I am. I lied. I can always cut another one. I did not do all this texturing on the journal. But it is true. I'm not worrying about the technique on this because I've already done it once. Ooh, cool. That's going to be neat. Let's see if there's another squiggledy. That can overlap. I did a cross-stitch book in 1980 called Jacobean Designs. Alrighty. Remember, I don't like things square to the world. Hot dimbers. I'm going to slip that one in the water. I'm going to skip the letters I had out, and I'm going to put another flower down here. Vicki and I owned a needlecraft store in Little Rock called Victoria 2. And then we grew up and she had baby, and Jim's job took them to live in a lot of different places. So we lost touch for a few years. About 30 to be exact. But we're back together now. They moved back home about a year and a half ago. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and begin some drippage at the top. And because my light's coming from here, I'm going to have this lighter color over here and the darker color over here. And I'm going to leave the modeling paste on the paper, the cardstock, because that will just help stiffen that up. Not quite dry. I did that whole thing without having the camera on. Alright, here's what I did. I mixed up some Viridian, pull it over again, some burnt umber, and a drop of red, just a drop of each one of those. And then I mixed a little bit, here's how I do it, a little bit of Viridian, pull down a little bit of the ochre, come over here, pull down a little bit of the red. Now the red tones the green down, and I'm getting kind of a rich brown color, which is what I want. Now, when I drop it on my wet canvas, the papers and the paper towels that were under there pick up and absorb the water better. And as I move across, remember I said yesterday that I was going to do a darker, cooler color over on the left and a lighter, yellower color over here. And so I'm just laying a real thin glaze down to start that drippage. And you can see here, that's so cool. You can see the yellow from before. And all I do is pick up some of the neutral color. If I want a little more red, I pick up a little more red. If I want a little more green, I work my way down. That's the beauty of not over mixing your colors on the palette. Just lay them on there, drop at a time, and then pick up what you think you want as you go. Now I let some drip over on the top, which I like a lot. And it's dripped all the way down this side a little bit, which is great. And the way it goes in the peaks and valleys of the paper. Here you can see where it's picking up a little bit in the modeling paste. I'm going to lay this flat and I'm going to zoom to see if it helps your view. Ooh, he doesn't like that. There we go. See how that yummy texture? Where is this? Oh, it's right there. My goodness, I am zoomed. Now back out to where we were. Alrighty, I'll be back in a little bit. Quinacridone violet. That'd be great, but you can't see what I'm doing. I'm adding just some of the colors I use in the pumpkin. Let those run a little bit, very, very loosely. You can dry them off if you don't like the way they're doing. A little bit of sap green. Just the barest of drops is all you need. Put that down. I want some more sap. Yeah. This This is just a push-pull type. You don't know what you're going to get. I lost my spray bottle. Here it is. Working on those sides a little bit. Or this is the top. Okay, so far. Had to turn it off because I lost my train. I have sprayed that with water. This is white gesso in a dauber top. A little bit of alcohol, see what we get. Oh yeah. A little bit. Ooh, hello, not dry. I know where I was when I had the brain fart. I was going to get up and get another paper towel. I'm wetting this side outside my pumpkin. And I've got some Deco Art Warm White. Some alcohol. The reason I'm continuing to play with this, well, there's several reasons actually. One reason is because I don't know how to play, so I'm teaching myself how to play. It's all about the layers, and I wanted to see what would happen with the modeling paste, and it's really giving me a cool effect. The alcohol is kind of pushing the paint around the circles, so I'm getting a white on white texture with a little bit of the background color showing through, and I really like it. And here you can see, here's some more texture up there. That's from one of those other modeling paste. It's so subtle, and that's exactly what I wanted. I love texture, and we've got it going on in this. I have mixed a little bit, one drop of burnt umber into the warm white that I have on the other side, into this side. I forgot to get it wet first. Not much difference in color, but a little. And a little is what I'm looking for. Hey now. Hey now. Just doing a little bit of negative painting. Another drop of burnt umber into that white, or the warm white, excuse me. Wet this area. I'm doing this slowly and deliberately. I'm a two-fisted painter. I've got a brush in one hand and my paint in the other. Slowly sneaking up on this. See the subtle variation in color? This is a whiter white. Put it down so y'all can see it. Whiter white going over into a little bit of a warmer tone. And then gradually coming down here into more of a coffee color. And lightening it just a little bit as it comes across. I'm going to bring that darker color down just or a little bit up on that side. Doggone it, I need another drop of burnt umber. I'm going to start sneaking over into the pumpkin now. That mixture was a little bit of, tiny little bit of yellow. Everybody fall down. Tiny bit of yellow. And a little bit of the orange blended over. Can you see how my colors stay true? You can see the yellow, you can see the orange, you can see that warm white. So that's what I do. If I want a little more yellow, I'll just come in that area and get just a hair more yellow. If I want more of the solid white, I'll just dip into that. So I do not overmix my color. I prefer to let it do that on the canvas. That time I dipped into just a little bit of the raw umber. And it will have more raw umber on the side of the stem away from the light. Just sneaking up on it. We're not in a hurry. Another little drop of burnt umber. That's why I like oils over acrylics. You don't have to keep adding to your paint. Now remember that each of these shapes is curved two ways. Each crease rolls this way and rolls up and down. That means the light will hit at the top and a little bit more along that side, and then as it goes toward the bottom it'll be darker, and as it goes toward the side away from the light it'll be a little darker. So here's an excellent example. Is the light is on that side, and then it goes over into a little more local color, which is what's underneath, and then a little bit of the raw umber. I'm deliberately keeping these colors thin, more like a watercolor wash, so that I can see all that texture that I've built. And I'm going to do the same thing right here, because that's away from the light. Now that's curving to the inside, so we've got a curve going like that. That means the brown will go down into the crotch of that plant, just a little bit, about like that. And if you get something you're not quite happy with, just bring your brush right along that line and clear it out. I'm going back in and picking up some of that white that was tinted with the orange. Thin it out. If you want a little more orange, come like that. If you get a little bit more than what you wanted, take a wet brush and just come back into it and pull it down until it disappears. Again, we want to see what's underneath that. And if you cover up your lightest light, just come back in and restate it. I had some white on that edge of the brush. I didn't really want it on there. So a little paper towel wrapped around the finger. We'll get that out of there so that it won't. I mean, you can get it out so many different ways, but if you want a strong or dark right there, best thing to do is get the light out of it. Just wipe it down. Now the burnt umber is looking a little warm against all those colors that are under it. Burnt umber is a cooler color. However, this burnt umber has a little bit of a warm cast to it. Burnt umber is typically cooler. Now if I wanted to cool that down a little bit, and I may do it in a minute, I can add some blue or something like that, but right now it's not bothering me. So we're going to keep going. A little more local color. Glaze lightly. I want a little more right here. Some more of that right in here. Now as this goes toward the bottom, we're going away from the local color that's warm right in here, and it's going to cool down somewhat. So I will address that in a minute, but what we're doing right now is just bringing that on down, setting the stage for our cooler dark. Very gently, very slowly. It'll be darker right at the bottom. See, we're beginning to get some form now. Slowly but surely we're getting some form. Getting some back and forth, and I'm getting some this way. This tissue paper is doesn't have very many layers of paint on it. I did that on purpose because this area is in shadow and it doesn't need to be taken up any attention. Your shadow shapes and your shadow areas traditionally should be fairly calm and not much going on. Now that's a hoot because in mixed media we want pattern everywhere. So it's kind of a balancing act. I try not to let traditional painting rules, if you will, interfere with playing. I'm going to start to bring that color, kill it just a little. And I had too much white. Now with that stem right there, we would have some sort of a cast shadow on this top edge. And then that color is going to come on down. Into the bottom area. Don't do as I do, do as I say. I got white mixed in that. I'm mixing a little bit of orange with the burnt umber to make it a darker local color. Need another little drop. So we're seeing some form. Starting to mix a little more orange into the burnt umber as I go toward the middle. Kind of feather your brush, very light touch. Kind of going into a glaze with just the orange. It's more of our pumpkin color. The local color is what you'll find when it's neither in light and shadow. It's just beginning to turn from one to the other. And that's where you'll find your local color, which in this case is orange. I added a little bit of the warm white. Don't want any hard edges. Look at that pumpkin. In the viewfinder I'm seeing a line right there that I don't really like, but I'm not real sure that that's really there. Some of that is caused by the paper textures underneath. I'm beginning to leave a few contour marks, brush strokes, because pumpkins have all kinds of physical texture on them. I've still got some quinacridone violet over here that's not quite gone. And we'll bring that right up in here where that pumpkin is the furthest away from the light. Because I'm glazing it thin, it will pick up some of those warm colors underneath it that I've already done. And that will give me my cooler look. We'll mix in a little bit of the burnt umber. Now I need a little bit of Viridian. It's a blue-green. I'm going to mix 1 drop of it in my quinacridone violet. Because this shadow shape completely blends into the pumpkin. And it becomes a little softer as it goes toward the light. Now, as the cast shadow comes out away from the object, it gets softer, sorry. Because the light is dissipating. The form shadow is right here, and this is your darkest spot. Right here. That grounds the pumpkin into the surface it's sitting on. So you can almost pretend with this warm coffee color, it could be sitting in the patch. And I'm going to bring just a little bit more of straight burnt umber over here. thin that out just a little. That's not a shadow or anything, it's just darkening that corner just a little bit. Smoothing the edge. Smooth my edges. Now when I added that dark down here, you can still see the outline of the pumpkin, which is good, but it's not in your face, okay? I put 1 drop of sap green. I'm mixing it with some yellow and picking up just a touch of that warm white. And I'm going to start on the very lightest edges of these leaves. I'm looking at my picture because, of course, I've painted over a lot. I'm going to make sure those are thinned out. And I don't want any hard lines. This time I've mixed a little bit of Viridian. With some of the mixture that I already had going. Well, after a few days of letting this sit and cure really good, I've come back to it and I want to show you some of the cool texture, if I can. So you can barely see it right in here. This was with a real light coat of, well, there's one of my hairs. Oh well, it'll be there for posterity. The tissue paper gave me some great textures up here. Some more of the stencil. Here's one of the little flowers. Tissue papers down here. I'm just real pleased with the way this is turning out. I'm going to try something here. This is Deco Art's Elegant Finish Metallic Paint, and it's called Champagne Gold. And it kind of has a, it's not gold, here's gold. See the difference? I'm sure there's a silver in here. There's another gold. Here's silver. So it's in between the two, which is probably exactly what it is. It's probably a mixture of the two. So anyway, I'm just going to try a little bit. Carefully. And it doesn't say anything about, oh, shake well, hello. Okay, put that back on. lid on. Shake well. That's well enough. Oh, big old bubble. I'm just going to get a little bit from the lid. Put a little bit right there. Here's a used wet wipe. It adds just a little bit of a glimmer. I might put a little bit over here. Baby steps, just little baby steps. I'm sneaking up on it, and that looks exactly like what it is. It's just a little bit of a glimmer. Just walk it around a little bit. Okay. Now what I really want is a little bit of an antiquing cream. Well, that is a nice product, though. Okay, I like that. I like that. Raw umber, and this is antiquing cream. Apply and let dry, and then remove. Apply with soft brush. Read the directions. Or read them and follow them. Put just a little bit out on the brush. It's really almost a chocolatey color. It's really nice. I'm going to try just a little bit right in here. And I'm being very careful, sneaking up on it. And I'll try to keep my head out of the camera. I want to see some of these textures. Okay, now let it dry. Let's put just a little bit in here. I'm going to put, while that's drying a little bit, I'm going to work a little bit more on some drippies. Sprayed that with water. I have primary yellow. Now wipe that back. a little drop of the primary magenta. Quinacridone violet. Now the beauty of the tissue paper texture is that the color gathers around the wrinkles, and that just makes a real neat look. I need some gold. No, maybe not. How about some cat orange? Burnt umber, yeah, burnt umber. I'm just putting out barely, I mean just almost a half a drop. I'm making a sort of a waterfall effect. I'm using, believe it or not, flesh tone. Just a little. And I've mixed up over here on my palette just a little bit of, well, that's good. A little bit of primary yellow, raw sienna, and Titan buff. Because I just want to brighten up some of these areas. Just a hair. Did you know that you can't, white is white is white, and you can't get any whiter than white. But if you take mostly white with just a tint of yellow, it can look brighter than plain white. Bet you didn't know that, huh? Hubby's home with the groceries. Looks like it's going to be thick pork chops tonight. I'm using a damp used baby wipe. It was already dry from the baby wipe. I put just a little bit of orange speckled in through there to give it a little more richness of color. I'm getting real close to finished on this. Let's put some magenta over here, or quinacridone violet, just 'cause I can. I'm going to put some more burnt umber in these shadow areas. Give it a little more drastic turn away from the light. Again, my little used baby white. That little spot right there could use just a little bit. Just a little bit. I'm using my old worn out brush again on purpose. And I think we're just about going to declare victory on this. We've got some real nice colors going on up there. And I'm going to let this dry a little bit and maybe come back to it tomorrow. Alrighty. This has become very light sensitive. And this upper corner, when I try to photograph it, just blows completely out. But I've accomplished it. I'll show you two versions, two different lighting. Neither one of them is exactly perfect with the painting. But all I did today was added a few splatters. I added a little more of the Titan buff with alcohol spots. Basically, that's all I've done today. I need to get out of it, leave it alone. You can see some of the speckles. You can see the texture. There's drips. And drips. And drips. And I signed it on the side. VNR, that's me. For VCC, that's her. Bonsai Pumpkin. And I did that because the leaves are so amorphous, however you say that. They're just kind of in and out, and there's some color of green that you could imagine being more leaves back there. And one of my good friends on social media said it reminded her of Cinderella's coach just before it turns in, the pumpkin in Cinderella just before it turns into a coach. And I thought that really suited it. I also signed it on the front, real small right here. And I don't date my artwork. I do in my journals, but not my artwork. So there you have it. I think it's a win. I'm real happy with it. And I think I'm going to do some more. Similar. Not pumpkins, but similar. I have some ideas. I has me some ideas. Okay. Enough silliness. Bye.